afternoon, but only to the people who actually decided to cosplay while sitting on their couch. I'm Gwarsenio Hall from 2 Minutes to Late Night, and I'm going to be your host for the DC Dark Knights Death Metal Soundtrack Comic-Con panel. Today we're going to be talking to writer Scott Snyder and a bunch of the artists and the producer involved with the soundtrack. But first, here's the trailer. This is definitely the most ambitious DC project since Darkseid meets the Muppets.
Easily. High bar, but sure.
For sure. So this entire DC metal / death metal idea sounds like something like a guy that looks like me would have made up. Scott, what was your inspiration for this? Is this just what happens when you're friends with Greg Capullo, who's basically just like the Brian Epstein of Black Label Society?
It is. I know. I've never seen Greg in my whole life not wearing something metal related, whether it's BLS stuff or honestly like Metallica, Judas Priest. Like every time I talk to Greg, that's the soundtrack in the background. So yeah, we wanted to do something that kind of felt like him and honored, I think, a lot of the energy he brings to stuff. But the thing, he's been a big mentor to me, and I think that the biggest lesson that he's taught me when it comes to both writing comics and also just, I don't know, life in general as a big brother is you have to embrace that spirit that I think he thinks of as metal, which is just going out there, leaving it all on the stage and being able to thrash and not worrying about what people think, speaking, your truth about whatever it is that's on your mind and just not giving, I guess it's for kids, the panel. So I won't use the language that Greg and I we use ourselves, but really just going for broke, and feeling like you're saying something you mean and not caring what people think and being okay breaking some toys along the way. So we wanted to make an event that felt like that said everything we wanted to say about comics, that, comics are something we grew up in, that we felt had that spirit of that Kirby-esque, going bigger than, larger than life, epic, nonstop, balls to the wall energy, and bringing that fun back and that kind of excitement around. You never knew what was going to happen. You can't believe they went there, that spirit. And so death metal was about that. It was about saying comics should be fun. Comics should be for kids and for adults. It should be something that embraces all the dark energy of the past and also brings it somewhere new for this generation. So, I got to give credit where it's due to my brother Greg. I wish he was here, but yeah, that's kind of where it began, was let's make something that feels like us.
Big love to Greg. We miss you, Greg. But did Greg get you into metal, or were you a metalhead before?
Yeah, no, it was mostly him. I mean, honestly, Brann, I was telling him, I was like, he got me into Mastodon, Gojira, like all new bands, but also like all classics as well. I've always been, more of a like rock, and grew up in the '90s hip hop stuff, and then Greg came along and was just like, "This is what we're listening to while we make this comic, and this is why." And so it was great. I mean, I love him for it, and all of the energy he brings to it. And it was just like, let's make something that feels like that, because you made me fall in love with all of it, and let's bring that energy to the comic.
From what I've seen in your writing specifically for DC, is it appears that you're one of the few writers that aren't scared to make up new characters. Like the Batman Who Laughs is inarguably a crazy idea, but you pulled it off. It's such an awesome character. I love it. Was like turning him into a goop monster called the Darkest Night and then fighting 700 universes always the plan? Like, how do you put together a story this big and complicated?
Well, I think like probably like the way it is when you guys, are writing songs or playing music, it starts from a really simple place. Like it starts from emotion, right? So Greg and I wanted to do something that said, this moment right now, it's really dark. Everyone's fighting with each other. Here, everyone, it feels like with the pandemic, especially kind of on the horizon when we were starting, it felt just like, how are we going to do something that brings people together for joy of storytelling, for joy of these characters, for joy of crazy lunatic storytelling. And so we wanted to do something that felt like, it was going to be a celebration of the lunacy of comic books in that regard. So it starts there, and then it becomes like, okay, once you know what it's about, once you feel like you have something that speaks to your heart, and you're like, I'm making something that says to readers, let's be brave and not be afraid of what's coming, and instead embrace it and make sure that comics live forever. Then you can be like, let me make 800 evil Batman with tentacle faces, and Batman and cyborg Batman and this. And you're not afraid to kind of take those risks because you know where it's coming from. So as long as there's a core in the DNA of the thing you're doing that you believe in, then it's okay to kind of, like you said, break the dishes along the way and be the bull in the china shop, as long as you know that the basic thing you're doing is something you believe in. So it was always that. So yeah, Batman Who Laughs, like all that stuff came along from, okay, this is the scariest moment right now for comics. Stores were shut down with the pandemic. People were afraid that we wouldn't make them anymore, all this stuff. Well, let's create villains that represent that. Let's make a Batman who's fused with the Joker, who has Batman's brain, but Joker's evil. Let's make a Batman who has Superman's powers, but was evil, and all kinds of, every scary thing you can imagine populates this story. So how do we do that in this metal spirit and then conquer it and show how the heroes can be just as metal and badass as the villains, by believing in themselves, by believing in the next generation, by believing that this will carry on even when all odds point to it won't. So it was that, and that gives you the courage, I think, to make all this kind of new crazy shit, new characters that are going to go and do dumb, do stuff that people might be angry about and be like, how could you combine Batman and the Joker? How could you make this and that? Well, again, if your compass is strong and you know what you're saying, then, hopefully they'll follow you there. And luckily with this one, they did. So we feel very grateful to DC for giving us the latitude and the stage to play it on, and to everybody out there for listening to the message and being able to go out there and support comics at a really difficult time.
Hell yeah, man. So like you brought up like being thankful for DC letting you like go this nuts with the story. It's like, were you worried pitching any of this that they're going to be like, this is too much?
Oh yeah, they were. DC was like, this is too much, many times along the way. They were sort of like, maybe you should tone it down. They wanted to break it into two stories and kind of put all the stuff they were worried about in one story and then kick it down the field for 2 years. Like there was a lot of like back and forth about this is too much, but ultimately Greg was great about just being like, we do it this way, we're going to do it our way, or we're not going to do it. And, he's been a great mentor about that. It's difficult. And I'm sure it's the same in music, where there's a lot of corporate pressure, there's a lot of there's a lot of people telling you if you don't kind of compromise in certain ways, then it's not going to sell or it's not going to do this. And sometimes you need someone like a Greg, a good friend along the way, to say, you got to stay true to what it's about and go as crazy and nuts as you want to go on this thing, because it's about something that means something to you. And if you do that, they'll show up, it'll surprise people. And so that's how we handle it. There was a lot of crazy emails along the way where Greg was like quoting Steve Jobs and being like, you must be foolish sometimes. And I was like, ditto what he said, Greg was like, tear up our contracts, we're going to quit. And I'm like, really? And then I'm like, yes, we will. So it was a lot of drama, but I mean, again, the moral of the whole thing is, I think the same thing that I hope is, for everybody here with music is, you have to make something that you love. Otherwise, what's the point? And if people like it, great. And if they don't, they don't. But as long as you're saying something that you believe in, that's the whole purpose. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love that Greg is just like the 2020 version of Joe Dorowski, just like, it must be my vision.
He was totally like that. He's like, and he has all these crazy strategies where he's like, and I can't do his voice. It always winds up sounding like a bad impression of a WWE wrestler, but
do it. Try it one time.
Like, yeah, he's a bodybuilder. So he's giant. He's got like the big mustache and the whole thing. And he's like, Scott, he's like, brother Scott, he's like, we don't communicate with them right now. He's like, we go radio silent. We go dead. And I'm like, I can't go dead. These are my bosses and my editors. And he'd be like, no communication. We're dead silent right now. And then like, you don't talk to them for a week. And, I'm like getting these angry emails and whatever. And I'm like sweating it. And he's just like, no communication. And it totally worked. I mean, he's amazing. Greg is a superhero in his own right, both a superhero and a supervillain in the best way. So I love him, but he gives me the moral strength to kind of, I think, follow my own vision. And that's why we really wanted to do something that was called death metal now, that, that's this music and the stuff that you guys do on the panel inspired him to overcome so many challenges in his life. He had a really difficult childhood, difficult upbringing. And I think he speaks about it and how a lot of the music and art helped him through it. And so naming it that and trying to embrace the spirit of, going out there and thrashing and not giving a what people think because you're saying something you care about. That's what this was all about. And, it's an honor to be on a panel with everybody that I know means a lot to him in that way. So, yeah.
Speaking of, I remember seeing the first issue of just Dark Knight's Metal on the shelf at Mysterious Time Machine in New York City. R.I.P. Mysterious Time Machine. No. It's sad, but I remember seeing it and going, damn, that would be really cool if there was like a soundtrack to this. And then just like Bob's Your Uncle, there's like a vinyl picture disc EP that Tyler put together. And I was like, this is sick. Scott, can you talk a little bit about how you tricked Tyler into being a part of this?
Oh, no, I mean, it was really, I gotta say, like, Tyler was the hero. I mean, Greg and I talked all the time about what if we could have a soundtrack, and I made a playlist, like Greg recommended all kinds of stuff. Everybody, Mastodon, which everybody was on it. Like, DC really came through as Matt Keller and some people there that really embraced the spirit of the whole event, that reached out and were like, I think we can do this. And I was like, there's no way. DC's so stingy and weird. They're never going to do it. And then they did. And, we were just so grateful. It really is Tyler's vision. And, I know Greg, it meant the world to both of us to see so many artists that have inspired him and inspired both of us now, being a part of everything we were doing here. So all credit, it's nothing to do with me. It was all, other people coming to the project and just elevating it. So we're very humbled by everything that Tyler and team was able to do.
Yeah, Tyler, how did you jump on board this project?
Well, we set out to do a soundtrack for Dark Knight's Metal, and there was an entirely different situation as far as the music production. And so on that project, my friend Mike Elizondo brought me on board, and the two of us produced a few songs, and Mike introduced Brann and I, and Brann did a song with us for that record, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And Matt Keller saw a great deal of potential that was missed in doing that project. So he contacted me in February of last year and brought up the idea of doing another one, but going the full distance and doing it right. And of course, I'm always down. So then I started contacting people before we even made a deal with Loma Vista to be our label, which of course included Chelsea at the beginning and a track I did with Greg Puciato and Gil Sharon and Starcrawler. And then as soon as we made our deal with Loma Vista, I wanted to have Mastodon as part of it if we could, if they were into it. And so, of course, we share some mutual friends and whatnot, and we reached out, and Brann was down and the band was down. And so one thing led to the next, and every track that came in as a result of our conversations and the artists checking out the artwork and reading the comics, it was so inspired. I think it just continued to fuel the fire throughout this whole time. It was a very uncertain time for everyone involved as far as what the future was looking like. And this kind of gave us a respite to just step out of ourselves and just, create a song. Or in the case, like for me, it was for fun. I thought, why don't we make a motion comic, right? And it turned into this whole series instead of like a trailer. But it was cool. It was, again, I'm a super fan of all this material, and I'm familiar with Comic-Con. Usually every year I'm doing something there. So I thought about, a soundtrack is oftentimes a widget that bears like a logo, and it's BS half the time. It's just a bunch of expensive licensed songs that don't necessarily have a direct connection with the source material. And here we had the opportunity to create a soundtrack based on the source material and have it come out in a timely fashion related to the comic series itself. So it was so fun because everybody took something unique away from it, from the songwriting to their voice performances of characters. And fortunately DC was always just 100% deferential to me, and my approach was like, let's not worry about writing hit songs. Voice this character however you feel them. Don't worry about any others. Don't even listen to any others. Let's do this for the fans as fans, and that's really been the sentiment that's pervasive on the record. And I think that's why it resonates to people who've heard it so far.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because as you said, you're no stranger to comic books. Like you've scored Watchmen. You've scored Guardians of the Galaxy, two of the biggest movies in the comic book genre. What was the approach like? What was the approach like using songs to help tell the story? Did it feel a little bit like building a musical where the songs can express emotions the characters otherwise could not?
I think it's a matter of your emotional interpretation of the material. I mean, there was no ask to make any literal commentary on the work that's already been done. I mean, Scott has said everything so eloquently, so perfectly, that I think all of us as artists, we respect that to the degree where we would not want to impinge upon that, but we take the inspiration from the context of the dialogue and the incredible visual art of, Greg's work is just unparalleled in my opinion. He's just so incredible. There's no way to look at the series of images as a musician and not be inspired to create something like right on the spot. So that was really great. But the awesome aspect of this was that we had complete autonomy creatively. No artist had to run a song by anybody to see if they liked it or if it should be, adjusted in any way. It was really about all of us just being able to have a good time and know that the buck stops with us. If we think it's cool, that's what's cool. And I think, again, when you listen to the whole soundtrack, you get that sense, and that's in the same spirit as Scott and Greg, and they're working together. They're not trying to be about it. They just want it to be great and not have it soapy focus group into mediocrity, which unfortunately is the graveyard of so much creative potential these days. And you can feel the transcendence of just that vibe in their work. And so I think it's kind of like this intangible that everybody picked up on when all the artists who came to the table on this project, when they familiarized themselves specifically with this work, they felt that spirit too. And so the whole thing has been fun because DC has been very, very supportive of our sort of indie version of this comic world.
Hey, it's you! Where the hell you been, kiddo? We've been looking for you. We're in a cake now. The thickest part. That cut of the battle where it could slice either way. And so everybody is leaving out there on that hill.
No, where are the heroes? Where are...
There is no one here but Darkseid, Kryptonian. I control with anti-life everything that breathes. I speak through everything in this place. If you wish to speak to me, kneel.
No! We can still win! Don't do this! No! Stop this! No! Alexis, please!
Superman is...
You shouldn't have killed him. Whatever you set in motion, I told you we needed to fight small.
And that wasn't something I could live with. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. Because moments from now, the Batman who laughs will evolve into some new nightmare, and all your grand plans of... just... forget it.
Look, now is our chance. This moment. If we band together and get that crisis energy, we can use it to save all Earths, even those that have fallen. Make something new and beautiful and endless.
As someone who has to make content in this genre of music, it doesn't get done without like passion and a drive for it. Otherwise it can stall. It can be seen as niche, but you guys really are putting all of this you can hear all of the effort in the music. And you, of course, you were talking about Greg's art and the inspiration from that. Brann and Chelsea, looking at Greg's art, did it feel like writing your songs did it feel like writing the album after you've already seen the art?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, you definitely never really have that visual component to be in front of you when you are starting to write the music. It's usually the other way around. So yeah, it was really helpful. I think, the art is so visceral, and it definitely lent itself to being heavy metal. So it definitely helped to be able to have something to look at.
Yeah, I second that word, visceral, for sure. Like the energy that you feel from the artwork and from the story itself was like very much just like coming at me off the page. And like I wrote the song Diana pretty quickly after reading the first issue, just because I was so inspired. So
for sure. And okay, well, for both of you, I mean, this is like David Hasselhoff is a part of this, but mostly it's like Andy Bierzak, it's Chelsea, it's got Dave Lombardo, Tim from Rise Against. Like this is mostly musicians. What was it like acting? Have you guys done that before?
I definitely have not done that before. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was worried that I was going to be too like monotone, but I did, the first like set of lines, and everyone seemed into it, so they let me keep going, which was fun. Yeah. What about you, Brann?
I've done some voiceover work. I did like some Aqua Teen Hunger Force episodes and some Metalocalypse, but this was, it's Dark Side, so this is a giant guy. He's a guy. Yeah. It's a big person, and my voice isn't necessarily like, hey, I'm a big guy. I'm this dude from Rochester. Hey, how's it going? So I was like, you sure you want this voice to be this good? So I got some effects involved, because I was, reading it and looking at the character. I was getting more of a, this guy needs to sound more like Darth Vader or something like that, some James Earl Jones. But yeah, it was super fun to do. But later I found out the rest of the players. I had no idea who else was involved, and to find out that, you're in a scene with David Hasselhoff for Chelsea, it's like, hey, cool.
Yeah, for sure.
We sort of met.
So yeah, the performances were all done independently at different times. So it was a challenge to like cull it together and create a score or soundscape, whatever you wish to call it, for these episodes. But it was also super inspiring because everyone, again, participated in fun. And like when Chelsea turned in her first performance, I sent it to Matt Keller at DC, and I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, it's really cool. I don't know. It's totally different than every other Wonder Woman. I'm like, people are going to love this, okay? Because it's her interpretation. I said, that's what this whole project is, dude. And he's like, all right, if you're into it, I'm into it. And so one thing, inspired the next. And, obviously if you're, looking at our boxes here on our what are we on? Zoom? Just
Zoom,
masters. Baby. Just masters, Brann, Chelsea, Scott. It's inspiring to work with such high caliber artists, and for us just to have fun in this space, where there are no real stakes when you're voicing one of these comics, although you can have some reverence for it and go, holy hell, my God, I'm going to put my voice behind this character that's been known forever, and people are going to judge me. So, we're just trying to have a good time and show a different dimension of how we see comics, and maybe a little less sharply veneered expression of that.
For sure. Well, yeah, like as you said, Chelsea, you and Wonder Woman are both powerful icons, but yeah, we've talked a little bit about you being cast at it as a bit unconventional. Like, I've never seen Wonder Woman flip anyone off when she's singing Crazy Train. But is Wonder Woman a character that you've related to before, or is it specifically just this version?
I would say specifically this version. Yeah, definitely unconventional, but also at the same time, I think I saw a lot of like, obviously with Wonder Woman, she's got to balance a lot of strength and a lot of like softness and guiding everyone along and being there for them at the same time. And, I think that I resonated with that within my own work as well. It's kind of like the same energy that I channel into my songs is like the balance of things and the masculine and the feminine and bringing those together in like a new way. So definitely resonated with her on that aspect. And, definitely an unconventional choice for Wonder Woman, like I said. But I'm also very like Scorpio, and I'm very like, calm and stoic on the surface, but there's like a lot going on underneath. So I kind of tried to bring that energy to this Wonder Woman voice as well.
Hell yeah, man. Brann, you spoke about you're playing a big guy. Did you employ any method acting to preparing to be 800 stories tall and have like horns for a chin?
I had a 3-egg omelet that morning. Usually I do 2, but I was like, all right, I gotta get into this. I gotta be bigger. I gotta bulk up. No, but it was really fun. It was definitely a highlight of those couple months. When this thing came along, it was really it was in the smack dab right when the pandemic was coming on, and there was no sort of hope in the future, and there was nothing going on really, so it was like it was a real nice thing to come along and, oh yeah, okay, something to do, yeah, that'll be awesome and fun. But yeah, acting in it was something I didn't see coming, and then when Tyler asked me to do it, I was like, yeah.
Tyler, like I personally have also had to put together like several isolated musical performances, and each one felt like it needed a different approach, or it had like different requirements depending on the artist. Like what was your specific approach to putting together the remote recordings, or how did you help people figure this out?
When it comes to the songs, especially nowadays in the tempo that we're living and the diversity of most artists' careers these days, it's not monotone, so people are reaching into other dimensions of applying their talent, and so therefore there is some aspect to virtual recording that we've grown a little bit more comfortable with. So that's really what our option was. And there were a few people that I'm close with who were part of this record that would come to my studio during this time, and that was also strange, masking up and being in the studio, because I'm pretty much solitary by myself in this room all the time. But really, everybody is such a pro that, as Brann had said, they just came to the table with like a great verve to disconnect from all the stakes of reality, all the questions of what lies ahead in the future and this dystopian, scenario that we were living in, and just kind of escape into this thing. It's a thing to do. There's some kind of a timeline. It's connected to some really fantastic art. And everybody who came to the table is such a master at their craft. I think it really inspired everybody to just turn in their best work. And, I'm grateful to everybody who came to the table, because it's been really wonderful for me, and it's totally expanded my mind, and to, develop relationships with some people that I hadn't really known prior to this time was really good. It was like a growth period during a really stunted period in our society and the world. So it was pretty good for my mental health, I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, man.
And back at you. We're grateful that you brought all this together and did all the good work to make all of it happen. It was really fun, so we thank you as well.
No, it's completely mutual. It's like every conversation, every piece of music that came in was just, it was fire. It was like totally inspiring, and it just made me want to push harder to pull this thing together to be the best thing that we can make it. And again, I'm so grateful for all the spin-off projects that have emerged as a byproduct of us joining in this concentric medium. So a lot of really positive energies come about through doing it, and it really would not happen at all if the artists didn't want to do it, because this was not like a money grab for anyone. This was just all for the love, completely for the love of doing it. And I couldn't be more grateful to everybody who's really lent their best talents to it.
Hell yeah. Tyler, do you have any like funny stories about someone like maybe not having like the right gear from their house? Like they were like, I love to do this. I have a talk back from Home Alone. Can I use that? Is that fine? Can you mix that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm used to working with all kinds of troubled audio, distressed audio. Fortunately, I mean, these guys are super, super pros. So they know how to make their art completely on their own, which is phenomenal. And they're set up appropriately to do it. So once it hits my hands, I'm just, accepting a massive responsibility not to screw it up. But it was, that was great. Whereas, I asked Dave Lombardo to be a guest colorist on the score. Dave and I are bros for a long time, and he's like, sure. Well, Dave doesn't live right in L.A. anymore, so Robert Carranza, who was our main mixer in the soundtrack, he's like my brother. So he and I trekked out to Dave's and got him sorted out for his recordings at home, which factored right into the Gunship track that Dave guested on. Gunship's a more electronic-oriented group from England, and the timing of this all came together, this record, at the same time they reached out to do a collab with me. And so through conversations, they kept referencing Dave. So I said, well, why don't we just ask Dave to play on it then, if you want to play on the song? So that kind of lit them up in a really cool way, and Dave was thrilled with the challenge because it's so outside his his natural wheelhouse. It was really nice to see that happen, much like Chino joining us on the Health song. He's literally the guy's favorite singer. The guys in Health, their favorite singers, he's Chino. So when the idea came up about having a guest vocalist, I just called him, and he was cool and just was down to do it. So it kind of happened that way. Pretty much anybody we inquired about just came to the table. And again, I can't be grateful enough for everybody to do that.
That's awesome, man. Well, you brought up specifically all of these artists. This soundtrack is called death metal, but it doesn't actually feature any artist from the death metal genre. That's right, folks. Dave Lombardo is thrash. I know I've been yelled at it on Twitter enough to know that. But can you talk a little bit about why these were the right artists for this album and what death metal means in this context for you?
Well, first off, a soundtrack album of this nature without Mastodon is just like, it's not complete. That's like a no-brainer right there. Chelsea, and I met pretty recently. I was just taken by her music. So I'm like, I gotta try and do something, work with this person. And then the timing of this all worked out together. And that's been fantastic. So there are other artists that came to the table too that really, I think, helped this record become what it is. Because I look at it more like the movie Heavy Metal, where, right, Sabbath is really like the only metal band, and on our record, I guess, Karak Angaran is black metal, so let's not confuse them with death metal. So we weren't trying to be literal about it. It's the spirit of the art and the storytelling and the world. So just because that may be the world that's more literally being depicted, doesn't mean that that's the score or that's the soundtrack for it, Even in a horror movie, as a composer, you have an opportunity to show what you're made of as far as your capacity to write an emotional theme. There's always a good emotional piece somewhere in a great horror film. But again, I think that, everybody we got for this was just fantastic. Show Me the Body, Starcrawler, and also, I'd say the Soccer Mommy track, Kissing in the Rain, was a great end to the soundtrack. Again, what we did is we created, through this mosaic of songs, was create our own score for this. And it's not literally one-to-one necessarily in sequence, but overall the body of work, I think, encompasses the lexicon of emotions that we were trying to encapsulate with this soundtrack. And again, it's not just dumbing it down, assuming people want to be beaten over the head 12 times in a row. So we got a track like Mastodon's track, then it's like, all right, well, let's make sure that punch still lands as hard as it was thrown the first time, by not trying to bring artists to the table that are just going to impinge on their vibe, So there was definitely an interest in diversifying the soundtrack so that it would just be a good listen, because we are in an era where people are listening to playlists. So the common denominator is that all of our artists are into the material, and each song is their own impression, their own interpretation of what that material means to them or how it resonates with them. So that's really what we were looking to do, more so than to create like some big metal record, although I do think it packs a pretty good punch.
Let's get directly into the songs. Brann, Mastodon's song Forged by Neuron is is a direct line of dialogue from the comic book. Was your approach just
That's
like,
right.
let's try to literally sing this book?
Not necessarily, but I mean, it's a cool title. So I was just when I was reading, I was scanning, and I was like, ooh, that popped out to me as being a cool title. And Neron is a demon from hell with a sick mullet. So I was like, that's our guy. Let's deal directly with him. And that's the inspirato for that.
Hell yeah. I mean, well, were you? Do you want to talk a little more about the songwriting process beyond that? Like, were you kind of the driving force behind it, or did the fellas dive in and go like, "Ooh, this looks like a riff"?
It was Bill and I that we write a lot together, and so we were we had been informed of the project and we wanted to get involved, and so we started reading and researching, and that was the most ferocious thing we had going, so we just went with that. And we demoed it without vocals, and I remember I sent it over to Tyler and I was like, check this out. This to me, looking at the art and just going through everything and reading it, this is the one that's giving me the most feels as far as like linking up with what artistically that it seemed like they were going for. And hearing the term death metal, I'm very familiar with the death metal. And so I was like, let's try to get close to it riffage wise, maybe a version of our former selves, sort of a ghost of ourselves sort of poking its head out again and linking up with the storyline. And so, yeah, that was sort of our approach, something sort of ferocious I was feeling from the story.
Chelsea, so your song, Diana, is, of course, that's Wonder Woman's real name, but this entire story builds to, like, Wonder Woman going, like, full, honey, I blew up the kids, and fighting, like, a giant demon played by Roger Rabbit, which was bananas. But where did the decision to strip all of that away come from, to, like, make a more grounded song?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's such a big story. I mean, overall, there's so much going on. It's, literal multiverse universes, and but for some reason, like I said, when I was reading that first issue, there was just like this sort of small, intimate moment in the midst of all that where she's talking to her friend Wally West for a moment, and he's just kind of like just saying how tired he is about everything he's been going through, everything he's been doing, and she's just kind of like comforting him, and there's like this just quiet moment of respite between two friends. And I don't know, yeah, like I said, it felt very intimate. For a second I was like, is this romantic or something, but I don't think it was. But yeah, I just for some reason just kind of latched onto that and ended up writing an entire song around that moment within this greater story. And then production-wise, for the sound of the song, kind of wanted it to feel the same. So there's like these really like whispery vocals in the midst of all this like chaos of industrial sounds from Tyler and from my bandmate Ben doing all this crazy stuff on slide guitar. So yeah, just like this intimate moment, and this grand scheme of things became that song, Diana.
So, these are not, it's like for both of you, Brann and Chelsea, these are not ideal working conditions. And you didn't know, like, as Brann brought up, like, you didn't know who else was going to be a part of this. Like, obviously that's, like, a little frustrating, but was there a part of it that was, like, kind of exciting to be involved with, like, a project, like, not really knowing where they're going to go with their approach for the voice acting or their songs?
Yeah, it was exciting. I mean, when you work within the confines of your own project that you've been working on for years and years and years, you kind of know the score. You know exactly. You know what you're going to do, and you have pretty much full control over it, and but this was cool because it's sort of a one-off, and it's going to be folded into a bunch of other creative people, and I trusted Tyler that they're going to cultivate a bunch of really cool artists and something really cool, that a bunch of different styles and sounds that are all going to lend itself to this DC universe, which is just the prospect of writing music for a comic book is a new thing to me anyways. I never heard of it until Tyler contacted me with Mike Elizondo the first time when I first did that first song, Red Death. And then the second time around with Mastodon, it's just a really cool thing to be a part of. And I guess I didn't feel as much pressure as I do usually with Mastodon. It was like, oh, this is going to be part of a greater thing, and we're all going to be together with it. And I think I knew that Chelsea was going to be, I think that's the only other artist that I knew was going to be a part of it, like when we first signed on. And I'm a big fan of Chelsea's work, so I was very excited to be. And I was like, wow, it's going to be like that. Cool, very cool. Chelsea's a very cool artist, and I love her music. So I thought that's very eclectic and cool. That two different sides of the heavy music spectrum coming together, and I was just excited to see all the other people that were going to be involved.
All these sides of the music, of the heavy music genre, coming together, like the Justice League.
That's right.
That's right.
Nice parallel.
Yeah.
For sure.
What about for you, Chelsea?
Yeah, I thought this. Yeah, so as I was going along doing this voicing of Wonder Woman, Tyler was telling me about different people that were involved, and one part that I really loved was when Wonder Woman and Perpetua came together at the end, and it ended up being Arrow DeWild from Starcrawler, who I love, and then there was the voice of the Hand of Maria Brink, whose voice I'm also such a fan of. So that was just really cool to have those three women come together, and yeah, just all these like amazing musician voices coming together in different ways.
Yeah, that rules.
Is that better?
It's so cool. Tyler, so we like Chelsea brought up Maria, we got Brann, and we talked earlier about Chino Moreno of the Deftones. They were all a part of just the Dark Nights metal EP. With this entire project, did you look at it as if it's an evolution of the first EP? This entire new soundtrack.
I did look at this more as an evolution because I saw what components that were necessary for the first one to reach its full potential were not in place. And there were a lot of moving parts at that point. But when this came around, Matt Keller and I planned a little bit more concisely, I would say, as far as what our big picture was. And we sought to get the support, the label support for that, and obviously to reach out to great artists. Luckily for us, Mastodon, Chelsea, and a couple others that I mentioned came on board right away. And obviously it was their commitment to this project that led to us attracting the interest of some of the other artists. Most of them I'm personally connected to in some way. I love making music with people I think are awesome humans, and then the record is filled with masters of their craft, which for me is always fantastic as it raises my own game. So I'm always looking to work with great artists, and really Brann and Chelsea are part of what kicked off, I think, the full roster of super potent artists that we did get for this album. And again, it was not a hard pitch or anything. It was literally like, well, our pockets are pretty empty, you want to do a cool thing? so it was cool, and people, if they see the creative opportunity at the right time and they trust, that someone like me is not going to, turn it into something that is not cool, then you'd be amazed at how much all of us are just still fans and want to do cool things. It's oftentimes the business that makes it difficult to do that and be spontaneous. But in this case, we were able to, at this very weird time in life, to work together on creating this whole mosaic.
And you're right. Putting a project together like this, it can feel kind of like throwing a party where people want to join. They're like someone will be just like, so is Chelsea for sure going? Is Chelsea? If Chelsea, don't tell anyone I'm going until Chelsea confirms that she's going. Then I'll, and you definitely like that's like you pick the right two people to kick it off because because as Brann brought up, it's two sides of the metal sphere. So just anyone in between that would be excited about the other one's involvement, probably both of their involvements. So that rules. Smart.
Yeah, every artist is very much still vital in their creative path in life right now. So we don't have any artists that kind of are burned out or been there, done that kind of thing, in their twilight. So everybody still has the fire and passion for their work, and they're constantly challenging themselves. And you can hear it in each of the artists' work on this record if you listen to what they're doing the past few years and the most recent things they're releasing. I mean, it's all really inspired stuff that is fantastic. So again, like somebody like me, I'm empowered by that, by just how it impacts me and inspires me to be more creative. And I'm always looking to create projects like that are good for everybody, and it's a really fun artistic community that we're culling together. And in this case, it was awesome because we had the bandwidth of, say, DC and Loma Vista, but they just kind of said, yeah, you guys do what you do. So there were no notes. It was just literally us doing what we want to do. Obviously, as artists, we'll check in with each other and say, so how do you feel about it? But there's no like critical discussion about how to make a song more like a single or more like something any of these artists have done prior in their careers. It was like, I don't care, you can do whatever you want, as long as you feel it, and that was really the mission statement to this whole thing, because it is made for fans by fans, and I wanted that to be something that was really apparent in every aspect of it.
So, and do you feel that, because you also scored like the animated series, and that also, like, the entire album to me in general is just covered in sonic textures that that blew me away. And I noticed so many of those elements showing up even on the soundtrack in the motion comic series. Like, how do you, like, I want to see if, or is there, do you think that this soundtrack is vital to the storytelling of the comic book?
I think that it's legitimately complementary. Obviously Scott and Greg have a complete vision for their work, and honestly, for them to entrust me and everybody who's contributed to creating another dimension to what their creation is, because as you can hear how Scott described he and Greg's strategies creatively in dealing with the man, they're pretty aggro. They're pretty punk rock in their approach, So that's something that I really feed off of. I mean, I'm always willing to go get into the mud and do something that way. So yeah, well, for sure, you have to do things because you love them. You can't do them for other reasons. And you have to do everything you can to protect the integrity of what your career, your creative objective is. In the case of this, yeah, I mean, just to have their trust, their endorsement. I mean, they voiced characters in our show. It was cool. It really felt good to have that trust and for everyone to accept my sort of indie DIY approach to it. And Lorena, who works with me here in the studio, she edited it all. And we were just piecing stuff together. The voice performances would come in all different times, different cadences, different everything. And so we had to kind of make stuff work. And then I just started working with the score. And I don't know, it's a very interesting process, a lot of reverse engineering, but it was good. It kept my my mind occupied for a good long time. So
yeah, for sure. I gotta imagine it's got, because it's gotta combine two different sides of your creative of like brain involving music, because you're focusing on the score aspect, but then also the songwriting aspect at the same time. It's like a hybrid of like a movie score and an album at the same time.
Yeah, well, when I write for film and television, the dialogue really serves a similar purpose or consumes a certain space in the music or in the movie that a singer, vocalist, or lead instrumentalist would in a song. So there's a parallel there that seems pretty natural to me. And again, this is all about storytelling and emotion. So whether we're in the motion comic, creating some sort of a literal, maybe mushroom infused expression of the original source material.
Yeah,
that whole thing is a trip. I mean, honestly, and it's just a weird. It's a weird but cool thing. Or it's the songs. I mean, I think again, everyone's performance was authentic, and they felt it, and they cared enough to take more than 2 minutes to do it. And then Greg Capullo gave us some awesome performances, and there was one performance. That was it. It was like, this is it. I was like, okay, then I'm going to make some sound to support that. I don't know what the sound will be. Sometimes it's musical, sometimes it's noise. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a great community of artists, emerged as a result of this project. So it's really cool.
All right, before we close out this panel, do you guys have any final comments? Brann?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm excited to, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that Tyler reached out and, asked Mastodon to be a part of such a cool collaboration, and I'm happy to be on a soundtrack with Chelsea Wolfe, and I'm just a happy guy in general, and I look forward to hopefully expanding upon this musical universe and collaboration in the future. Hopefully we can do more stuff like this, because it's really fun.
Yeah, Tyler, is there plans for more DC metal?
There are definitely plans for more creative endeavors in this space. We're already talking about some things that would be great. And I'm excited about my continued collaboration with Chelsea and Ben. We're working together on a film right now, and working with a few of the other artists involved here. So, we just want to keep the collaborative spirit flowing, and I just need to present a cool enough idea for everyone to hopefully consider rejoining the team.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here. Get excited, battle vest wearers. Chelsea, any final comments?
I'm also just really happy to have been a part of this. It was such a cool experience to do the voicing and, of course, to write a song. Also stoked to be on, the same soundtrack as Mastodon. Obviously a huge fan. And yeah, it's just been a really great experience. So thank you for having me.
Well, on behalf of Scott, Brann, Chelsea, and Tyler, we'd like to say thank you all for watching and for joining us. Stay tuned for our panel on Plastic Man, Acoustic Folk.